Over the past decade, student graduates around the world have been unable to find good entry-level jobs, and employers have been unable to find the skill-based workforce that they need. In Canada, for example, 38% of employers reported that they were unable to find suitable skilled workers. Therefore, a need for faster and more efficient pathways from school to work was identified. This led to an emerging market of providers who integrate industry credentials and prior knowledge into an unbundled degree system. A micro-credential, they call it. It's a form of non-degree qualification which offers flexible, short, and inexpensive assessed knowledge, skills, and competencies that are industry-aligned. It can be additional, alternate, complementary to, or a component of formal qualifications. Other terms are used interchangeably with micro-credentials. This is an emerging phenomenon all over the world. While skill and competency development aligned with workforce needs have existed for decades, what appears to be changing now is the priority ascribed to micro-credentials and a large amount of investment in them. And although micro-credentials predate COVID-19, the pandemic's impact on education and employment only made the need for flexibility, upskilling, and reskilling more immediate. Skills needed in today's job market are evolving faster than it takes for degrees to catch on. The Future of Jobs report estimated in 2020 that 50% of employees worldwide will need reskilling by 2025. There is already a shortage of skilled workers in the tech industry. As a result, more than 75% of micro-credentials are currently in technology or business. Many government, higher education, and corporate leaders are pushing micro-credentials. They say that the source of knowledge shouldn't matter. What matters is what someone knows and can do well. Stackability and portability are two important topics when it comes to micro-credentials. Portability is the degree to which a micro-credential is recognized by employers or educational institutions. Stackability is the ability of a learner to put one smaller credential toward a larger credential, such as a degree. So in theory, this sounds great. However, a study based on Australian environmental professionals found that while there was strong support and enthusiasm for micro-credentials among employers, they felt that they need further context about how micro-credentials can be used and what standards are applied in order to have more confidence in considering them in their hiring process. And another US-based study that surveyed 750 companies found that employers find micro-credentials very useful for upskilling and reskilling. However, they see them as supplementary to degrees and not a substitute for them. Micro-credentials vary widely in terms of duration, format, assessment, and whether they can lead to further qualifications or not. There is a lack of an agreed-upon definition for micro-credentials, which some believe can undermine their value and impact their uptake. While learners enjoy more flexible options for lower cost, there is also great uncertainty around how a certain micro-credential will be viewed by future employers or educational institutions. There are no reliable accreditation systems for micro-credentials. Currently, organizations who award them develop their own standards and assessment systems. Credential as You Go is an initiative with a goal to build an incremental credentialing system in the US in which all learners are recognized for what they know and can do as they acquire learning from multiple sources. This effort will contribute toward the issue of centralizing and making micro-credentials more trusted. A number of scholars are concerned with the rise of micro-credentials. Referring to the rush of many private and public universities around the world to introduce them, they say that this phenomenon reflects a neoliberal ideology which promotes education as a commodity to be sold rather than a public good. Some believe that the unbundling of courses into smaller units changes education into a market form. One paper called them gig credentials for a gig economy, and it argues that micro-credentials contribute to privatization rather than presenting opportunities for social inclusion and access to education. A vice-chancellor at a regional South African university said, "It is our view that this is a cultural contestation. The for-profit competitive culture of the market or needs of industry bumps up here against the for public good, locally responsive culture of this rurally located institution. The rise of competition always presents challenges to institutions, and private providers are growing at a 70 to 100% annual growth rate. However, third-party suppliers are not all for-profit, and they usually partner up to produce offerings. For example, Digital Promise is a nonprofit which is federally funded by the Department of Education alongside various donors such as the Carnegie Corporation and the Gates Foundation. Coursera is the largest MOOC provider. It moved from 44 million registered users in 2019 to 92 million in 2021. And even though micro-credentials are hosted and marketed on both of these platforms, they are usually produced in partnership with industry partners or higher education institutions. FutureLearn is a British digital education platform which hosts a micro-credential called French for Global Communication, Level 1. This micro-credential is offered in partnership with King's College London, costs around $759, and is offered over a 10-week period. Also, universities have become a large part of what some have called the micro-credential craze, in that they have become major providers themselves and have advanced their employability agenda to match the need. MIT's MicroMasters is one of the most popular programs. These MicroMasters, alongside edX and Udacity nano degrees and Coursera specializations, contributed to the fact that the United States market has been front and center in micro-credentials. Enough data is not yet available to understand who exactly benefits from micro-credentials and how. What we do know is that in 2013, only 40% of US companies accepted online learning when evaluating job candidates. That number jumped up to 71% in 2021. Employers reported that online credentials were equal to or better than those earned through traditional means. This means that this phenomenon is nowhere near baseless. The need for faster and more efficient pathways from school to work has been strong enough for numerous universities and consortia worldwide to have to start looking at micro-credentials seriously. And although my research made it clear that the current system of operation for micro-credentials is not working perfectly for any of the stakeholders, there are organizations and initiatives working toward fixing that problem. In addition to Credential As You Go, there is Education Design Lab, a nonprofit designing education toward the future of work. And CBEN is a network of institutions, employers, and experts who believe that competency-based learning can unlock opportunities for today's learners. Despite opinions, at this point, there has been too much investment in micro-credentials from all kinds of stakeholders to say that they are not here for the long run. In 2022, Walmart awarded a $400,000 grant to Corporation for Skilled Workers to advance systems change of incremental credentials. Also this year, Forsyth Tech Community College received more than $100,000 in funding from the National Science Foundation Advanced Technical Education to support micro-credentials. In 2021, the Australian government allocated 24.5 million Australian dollars to support micro-credential development for both local and international consumption. These are just a few examples of the investments being made in micro-credentials. Universities and companies are also making internal investments and financial allocations for developing micro-credentials. So, in the next few years, it'll be essential to have more research on how this phenomenon is going. Who are the major providers down the line? Who's benefiting from micro-credentials? How are they benefiting? And what are the outcomes?